Yo, what up, folks? This is Rodney Farrell, the CEO of Farrell Development Group, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast hosted by D-Cal. Let's get it.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy D-Cal here, hosting of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. I just want to say thank you very much for tuning in to episode 43. Man, listen, excuse my tardiness. Usually the E.I.T.H.R podcast is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 3:30 Pacific time. But today, some things ran over, and I'm starting a little bit late. But hey, in past episode, I would have said, you know what, I'm not going to do an episode today. I'm just going to wait till Wednesday and start it off with a bang on time. But after consulting with my educational advisor / exotic dancer in the Bay Area, she suggested that you go ahead and give the people what it is that they want, because a little bit of something is better than none of it at all. So here we are today from the GNS HQ here in Northern California. I'm loving the rain today. Listen, when I was younger, summertime was my favorite season of all time. I remember playing basketball in 112, 113 degree weather. Black t-shirt, shorts, didn't matter, asphalt, and I would look for the person who remotely appeared to be exhausted and would just demolish them on the basketball court. But that was a 22-year-old me. The knees were different. The back was different. Anyone who's 35 plus, those were the times where you didn't sprain a muscle sleeping. You didn't pull a muscle standing up from sitting. Anyone who's 35 plus have those days, man, where you're just sitting down and you cough wrong, your back pop, and you don't know what happened because now your kidney hurts. I want to apologize to everyone who was 35 plus that I used to make fun of when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. I owe you a Sizzler dinner because you can tell how the weather's going to be on how much pain your knee is having when you wake up in the middle of the night for no damn reason at all. So, for everyone 35 plus, you wake up in the morning and you have your half a cantaloupe, your half an orange with your coffee, reading your newspaper, right? Thank you very much for staying awake, because it's now 4:15 p.m. for 35 plus. You probably just finished watching Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, Price is Right, Press Your Luck, getting ready for Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. You know, some of us who remember, getting around that time for you to watch Family Matters, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, A Different World, Married with Children, Home Improvement. These are the shows that's right around our bedtime, right? So but summertime used to be my favorite. See, now, man, this is it. Today's the first. We've had first rain here in Northern California today. And I gotta say, this shit felt good. Just listening to the rain, just the smell of clean air. Like, yo, when you get older, colder weather tends to be the more it than the hot weather. And for anybody who got some smart ass to say about that, the human body is like an engine, right? The harder you work that engine, the more miles you put on that engine, the more you push that engine to red line, over time, it's going to have some moments where it breaks down. Some of the most boring people when they get older, man, are some of the people who went the hardest when they were younger. If you're under the age of 30, you may not understand that. You may not get that because you're under 30. Well, under 27. Because once you get 27 or 30, you realize how your body processes the day after drinking differently than you handle it before 25. And the older you get, the more you think you are in your 20s, it's going to take that gap of a difference in age for your old ass to recover. Throwing back shots is no longer the same as babysitting that single shot anymore. It's hits different. The recovery is different. It feels different. You can hear shit that you never heard in your 20s, and everything is louder. So that's what that is. And understand it's going to be a little bit different. Today's going to be a really short episode. I just got a couple things I want to talk about with you guys. And before we get into that, I want to start off by telling you guys I appreciate the consistency of people who are watching the YouTube videos on the GNS Inc. YouTube page. Thank you very much. Slowly but surely, this is an independent podcast. So every view that I get, it does make me smile a little bit. It does make me feel good. It does make me feel like I am bringing something that people want to hear because the views are still there. So I just want to say I appreciate that. The second thing I want to say is I do appreciate the people who do comment and engage with me on my inbox and Instagram and on Twitter. E.I.T.H.R, the ether. There's a lot going on for me to build the platform. So sometimes I don't engage as much as I want to, but I want to give at least acknowledgement to those who do send messages. Thank you very much. For those who do follow, thank you very much. So for the people who are listening to the podcast here in the United States of America, in Canada, in India, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Russia, in Denmark, Lithuania, in the Soviet Union, in Spain, in Europe, I want to say thank you very much. It means a lot. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to make this podcast as enjoyable as I possibly can with better content. And I'm only doing this stuff to improve of the best I can with what I got. So thank you very much for hanging in there. A couple things I do want to talk about is some things that I've been wanting to get over with the weekend. And one particular topic that I want to get on, I've been dwelling on for the past couple of months. So we're going to talk about the weekend topic first, and then we're going to talk about the one I've been dwelling on for months once we get back from this.
Hi, this is Clarissa with Zipology, and we have a fantastic selection of tea, teaware, and various other items. Currently, we are offering a huge 25% off sale with Christmas in July. Come check us out on Facebook at E.I.T.H.R. That's E.I.T.H.R. Stop stalling and start miling. mile.today. That's MILE.today. Mile today. Make it look easy.
Okay, so the thing that been bothering me this past weekend it's really a small thing, but it's also one of those situations that happens so often. It does get overlooked quite a lot, and we're going to try to bring some light to it today. So that's what we're planning on doing right now with this particular episode. So, first thing we want to talk about is this. If we like you, we'll forgive you regardless of whatever it is that you did. If we like you, you're forgiven. If we don't like you, we will remind your ass every single time we get the chance to. Is that fair? Of course not. Is that life? Of course it is. What I'm talking about right now is one of the NFL legends, Brett Favre, was caught in a scandal not too long ago. And the scandal is he apparently used money from a welfare recipient in the state of Mississippi. You can look this up. It's kind of ridiculous, right? There's a whole article about this where my man used the funds from what it has been documented as the poorest state in the United States of America. Again, which is Mississippi. And he has text messages with the ex-governor to help use these funds to set up like a volleyball arena, allegedly. And in the text message, excuse me, it clearly shows where Favre asks, is there any way for these text messages or for these funds to be traced back to him? Is there any way for this to come back and bite him in the ass? And the response from the ex-governor says, no, there isn't. One of the frustrating parts about this is not only is it fraud, but it's one of those fraudulent things that comes from one of the NFL greats who didn't need to do that. That's probably one of the most frustrating parts is he did not need to do that. My man's literally could have just went out and told the world, hey, I'm Brett Favre. I want to start this venue for some girls. Can I get donations? And though, I mean, obviously, this is kind of more of a hyperbole, but the world would have gave it to him. We have given grief to people who manipulate the welfare system, government assistance system on a regular basis. Right? We even have names for them. the welfare queen and all these other fun things. But when a celebrity that we like does it, why do we forgive them, right? Even Tom Brady, remember where he got, what was it? I think it was, I can't remember the amount of money it was. But he got loan forgiveness from PPP a couple years ago. And everyone's looking at them like, how is he not getting disciplined for this? If we like you, or it doesn't even have to be us, I guess is the point. If you are liked by certain people, you are forgiven. And that's the fucked up part about it. Because isn't that fraud? Please let me know. If that's fraud, shouldn't, and this is a rhetorical question, but shouldn't people of that stature be given the same disciplinary action as us on this side of the tax bracket? We're going to say, yes, they should. Matter of fact, they should be held to a higher standard. But the truth is, once you're on the side of that tax bracket, you have access and the ability to do certain things that you wouldn't on this side. And that's crucial. That's big for people to understand when you're talking about certain individuals. When everyone talks about tax the rich, they're not they're under different rules than we are. Right? Fair or not, they're under different rules. Brett should, and again, I am a fan of Brett Favre, the old gunslinger, which is another term of endearment, right? Gunslinger in NFL terms, a gunslinger is a quarterback who just throws the ball. He just, fuck it, you're open, right? If anyone understands the positions of football, you have your wide receiver or your tight end, whoever your target is. Most of the time, it's your wide receiver. And if your wide receiver is covered, tight coverage, double team coverage, blanket coverage, you're going to throw the ball to him anyway because you trust that your wide receiver is going to get open. You trust that he's going to make that play. Now, that's a good thing for a quarterback because you know you have a security blanket to get you out of a situation that you know you can depend on. The bad thing about that is you're going to force the ball into that window. Any other QB who does the same thing, they're called irresponsible. But if they like you and you're marketable, it's called a gunslinger. It's crazy. Right? If you're liked, if you are adored, if you are marketable, you get certain privileges that the others don't. And that's just the life that we happen to live in. Tom Brady, quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I've learned this, that in the NFL, generally speaking, Tuesdays are kind of your normal day off. Where you play on Sunday, you come in, you watch film, you talk to the trainers on Monday. Tuesday, you pretty much have off across the league. And then you practice on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, prep on Saturday, play on Sunday. Now, that schedule changes, excuse me, if you play on Monday night or if you play on Thursday night. But generally speaking, that's kind of how it works. Tom Brady has a situation right now where, well, he's apparently going through it in his personal life, at home, with his family. That's another topic. But they gave him Wednesdays off. Personal day. Again, when you are a veteran, you get certain perks because you played the game long enough, you've been in the system long enough, especially if you have a consistent offensive coordinator, head coach. You kind of know the rhythm of everything. So a lot of these practices are for individuals who are fresh out of college, early in their career, need the repetition. I think there's a few other professional veterans in sports that gets this type of treatment, but I think it's funny how some information gets leaked out, or some players get preferential treatment over other veterans based on their status, which in my mind, I get it, but it does kind of suck, because what makes you so special? And you can go ahead and make the argument you want to about Tom Brady and his status, so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. I'll argue it because I don't have the same kind of guidelines you do. But that's me. That's me as an individual. Now, the next thing I want to talk about real quick, the most patriotic people. Let me rephrase this way. Whenever we're having a conversation when it comes to certain freedoms in this country, whether you're left, whether you're right, is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But there are certain people who just feel. There are freedom that you have in this country that you should just acknowledge and be quiet about everything else. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves when talking to certain individuals about certain issues in this country. Because I'm an analytical person. I'm also a pictorial person. But at the same time, I'm a human being with some empathy. And I try to relate things to where it's easy to understand and easy to explain. So, think of this country as a house. And we are all brothers and sisters, siblings living within this home. If one person has a problem with what's going on in the house, do you tell that person that's in your roof, in your home, shut up and deal with it? Or do you tell that person that's in your house, that's in your home, what's the issue that you're having so we can address it and fix it? Whether it's fix the problem, fix the issue you have with the problem, or come with some common solution, a compromise within this home that we all have to live in. There's always going to be that individual or groups of individuals who are extreme one way or extreme another. But I think it's very interesting. The most patriotic people who just live and die America, who bleed balding eagle flying through the sky, who just shit stars and see blue stripes. Those people who have to have the loudest truck and the biggest flag and the barbecue every American holiday and tell you how patriotic they are with their clothing. And everything's about our troops. And everything's about our freedoms. And everything's about our rights. The most patriotic people that you and I know are also the same motherfuckers who did not or refused to serve. Has anyone else noticed that? These same folks are the same folks who, when it came time to serving their country, didn't. Not all of them, Not all of them. But it seems the loudest ones are the ones who didn't. It's like that one guy who has to fight, who's the badass, who just will whip anyone who ever steps to him, right? That guy. They never fall. It's the toughest son of a bitch in your apartment complex that when he's getting ready to fight, his stance is off, his hands are in the wrong place, his swing is weird. Because anyone who's ever fought, you've realized fighting's not pretty. It's nowhere near pretty. It's downright ugly. Even the winner, right? Even the lion in battle bears some scars. And we only hear of the tale of the winner. But we never see what the winner had to go through in order to win that battle. Right? It's always those who never had to can tell you the most of what it's like to. And I think there's a division amongst what people are raised to believe and taught to think in their households, one way or another. I have a niece, I have brothers, I have a grandfather who serving in service. I have found out a cousin who is in law enforcement, several of them. My mother's first cousin was the late Johnny Cochran. Never forget the time where we went to Emeryville to visit him. And she was nervous as hell because it was almost like it was right after the trial. And this one, it was so cute seeing my mama so nervous to see this man. But even I had to grow up and understand that those who actively want to be the tough guys are usually the ones who've never been in, or they're simply just bullies. And they kind of pick their fight on who they're going to win against. Right? Because the way my brain sees it is, what's more patriotic? Telling your fellow countryman or woman, listen, we live in this country together. We have this issue together. You got a problem, I got a problem. Because I'm going to have to deal with your problem either way. Tell me what the issue is so we can address it. Or is it more patriotic to tell your fellow countryman, shut up and deal with it because I don't want to be bothered with it? Think about that. I had a conversation with someone on social media today. And the problem with social media, a lot of people are on there, they don't want or care about your problem. Their whole thing is popularity, making a name for themselves, and shock value. Listen, I have my fair share of it too. I, on occasion, might post something that stirs a pot or two, maybe. But a lot of mine are in jest. It's comical reasons. People who know me know that. Now, the flip side of that coin is there may be people who are doing the same exact thing, but they don't know me. I don't know them. So therefore, no one knows. Everything's in jest or in humor or inside joke. But there are a lot of folks out there who stir the pot on purpose because that's how they get their day going. Literally. They will post something that they know is going to piss somebody off. So therefore, their inbox, their posts, their comments, their alerts are going to be jumping. And they're going to sit back and watch. And that's kind of what a lot of people do online. And then you have a combination of people who are just completely ignorant to the situation. And their only resource is their resource of one-sided news outlets and or social media bias. And they don't have access to the other side of the coin. See, I told this one person, or I didn't tell them, I said, instead of going on social media and listen to the trolls and the one-sided loudmouths, why not talk to the people who are in this description and see what it is that they have to say, right? That's one reason why I tend to be empathetic with a lot of people, because I have gay friends. I have white friends. I have friends who are in different political positions. I have friends who support different political parties. I have friends who support, it's no different than being friends with someone on a different sports team. It's, why do you see it this way? How do you see it this way? Teach me what it is you see, because what is it that I am missing? And they sit back and explain, listen, all because they explain themselves doesn't mean that I switch my perspective. I switch my position. Now, I might switch my perspective. I might see it differently. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to think differently about the topic, but I may think differently on why someone does that, right? The loudest ones in the room are the weakest ones in the room. And that's a quote from the late Frank Lucas, if anyone remembers the movie American Gangster, which is the truth. Because I have friends who are Democratic and I have friends who are Republican, and I'm like, why? And they explain. I believe it was not my Spaces episode, but my last podcast episode, where I made the comment. The saying is the truth is somewhere in the middle, which is probably the reason why they're working extremely hard to make you pick a side. Because the further they can have you go left or further they can have you go right, the further you are from the truth, which is somewhere in the middle. Now, people don't even realize we say the same shit. We sit back and say that the media is this, the media is that, which nowadays the media is no longer media. It's more commentary. It's more telling you in a manipulative way what to think versus how to think. Yet the same people who believe that is the case with what's going on, these are also the same individuals who would defend their position based on what they're told by these same media channels. And it goes right back to which is more patriotic. The news channel that is being filtered to the left, the news channel that's being filtered to the right, or finding a news channel that filters right down the center. So you can decipher what's bullshit from this side, what's bullshit from this side. Because if you pay attention, both sides sling it. And that's why I try to talk with friends about certain things that come up. Like, is this true? And in today's world where information is so readily accessible, Nobody wants to be corrected because everyone believes their sources are the right sources, when no one in today's era even knows how to vet a source. Our sources are the shit that agrees with what we think. All because 20,000 people agree with you does not mean all 20,001 of you are correct. It just means you guys think a lot. So the question again, the loudest ones are the ones who haven't done it. Our brother gave me this example in martial arts, and he says, guy says he wants to be the baddest fighter in the world. He wants to be the toughest son of a bitch ever. And his instructor says, okay, go out and you win 1,000 fights. Go win 1,000 fights, you'll prove to be the toughest son of a bitch on the planet. Guy goes out, 125 fights, undefeated. He's like, yeah, I'm tough. I'm badass. Goes out, wins another 125 fights. He's at 250, undefeated. It's like, damn right. No one can touch me. By the time he reaches 500, he has his epiphany and his understanding that who cares? Shit doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Understand something. My father told me this. There's always going to be somebody bigger and badder than you. You just ain't met him yet. And you better pray one day that you don't. Because that'd be the wrong day to lose. What you want to do, in my opinion, is if you want to make this country better, find out what it is your countryman is having an issue with. Now, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, there's a difference between somebody who's credible versus somebody who is what they would call crying wolf. Right? Huge difference. Huge difference. And I think a lot of people don't grasp that. They don't understand that part. And so they tend to go towards the folks who make the loudest, obnoxious noise and use them as their source of, yeah, see? That's a cop-out. It really is a cop-out. You have to think versus be told.
Hi, California, listening to the handsome and witty decal of the E.I.T.H.R.
You have to be willing to know the difference between somebody manipulating you or showing you what's called a propaganda. Right? Parading it in your face. And that, in my opinion, is the exact opposite of what's American. Right? But the term American is such a loose term because what it stood for when this country was established is completely different than what we wanted to stand for in today's world. Because when the Constitution and all these amendments and all these freedoms were written, we tend to not think about the mindset of the people who wrote them and the time they were written in. So one of the biggest issues, for example, not to open up an old wound, is Roe versus Wade. If you read it, the protection of women and their choice of freedoms for reproductive or for abortion or birth control or it's not in the Constitution. But what it is, it was an understanding. It was an unwritten amendment that we understood was part of it. But if you look at it word for word, it's not in there. These freedoms are written one way, but we interpret them as time goes on because we have advanced, we have progressed, but we are a new world living under old rules that if anybody wants to can go back and say, well, if you look right here, it doesn't necessarily say that. And they're not lying because it doesn't say that. We just interpreted that whatever fill in the blank is under that. So should we change these constitutional rights? Should we change these amendments? Should we change these laws to be more updated? Or do we want to honor what was written 400, 500, 600 years ago? Because the world's still the same way. Anybody who says you don't touch them, you have to ask them the question of, I understand. But today's world is no longer under these circumstances. So at any point in time, somebody can say this and uphold these rules. Okay? You're going to uphold an old law in a new world? And you seem that's fair because that's how it was. It's like playing a game and someone refusing to change the rules of the game because you have somebody who's slower, someone who isn't as good, someone who isn't as athletic, someone who's not as swift or quick on her or his feet. You're putting them in a disadvantage, right? So how is that American if you understand these rules were not meant for this group, this group, this group, and this group? Yet it's interpreted, it's understood to be, but it's not written. So which makes more sense, to continue to interpret a non-written or to edit to where it is added so it is now written? Which is it? Which is kind of a contradiction in itself, because if you go back to certain things, we're not going to talk about religion right now. We're going to leave that alone. Okay? But I will say that there's a lot of motherfuckers who want to sit back and bring up the Little Mermaid situation, but they sure to hell won't talk about situations like this. And it's so annoying. It's extremely annoying. Which goes back to which is more patriotic. The people who are the loudest are usually the most ignorant. It just, they happen to turn on the bigger megaphone or get the most attention. So, which is more patriotic to you? Looking at your fellow countryman, looking at your fellow countrywoman, looking at your neighbor that lives within your house of America and saying, what is your issue? What is your problem? What's bothering you? How can we fix it? And being willing to understand that your neighbor in Alabama has a different experience than your neighbor in Georgia, which is a different experience than your neighbor in Ohio, which is different than your neighbor in Minnesota, which is different in Washington State, which is different in Central California, which is different than Southern Texas, which is nowhere near the same as Northeast Florida, which might be different than New York. Everyone has different experiences. So all because you poll 1,000 people does not necessarily mean that the other 328,897,000 people all see it the exact same way. So you got to ask yourself, how much better do you want America to be? Do you want to be better for yourself and people who look like you? Or do you want to be better for everyone, including those who don't look like you? Follow me on Instagram and the Twitter, the E.I.T.H.R, TheEITHR. YouTube, the GNS Inc. See y'all on Wednesday. We out.
This is Sherelle, creator of the Business Lounge for Successful Entrepreneurs, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by D.Cal.